Welcome to Everlasting Talk. Welcome to Everlasting Talk. I'm your host, Evaristo. This is the Biographies, and today we're talking about FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was one of the most influential presidents who served almost 4 terms, our 32nd president of the United States from 1933 to 1945. Thank you guys again for joining me at this episode. I'm really glad to be here with you guys, especially talking to one about one of my favorite presidents, FDR. Let's begin, guys. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was born in Hyde Park, New York on January 30th, 1882 to James Roosevelt and Sarah Roosevelt. He's related to Theodore Roosevelt, who is his fifth cousin, so it runs in the family. The family was wealthy, which allowed him to be in close quarters to high-profile politicians and travel to Europe, where he would learn German and French. He was homeschooled until the age of 14. He went to Grosston School and eventually went to Harvard College, where he joined a fraternity, was a cheerleader, and became an editor-in-chief of the Harvard Crimson, the newspaper. His dad died in 1900, which was tough on him. He struggled a lot because he really liked he really loved his father. So it's tough for him to, lose his father. Obviously, who wouldn't, right? He ended up graduating from Harvard with a BA in history. Yay, history! So hey, it's a good company, I'm a history major too. Eventually, he entered law school in 1904, but dropped out in 1907 after passing the bar exam. FDR would end up marrying his fifth cousin, once removed, Eleanor, on March 17th, 1905, so pretty much coming up. Not uncommon for intermarriage in the Roosevelt Delano families. The couple had 6 children. The second child died in 1909. FDR would engage in an affair. Eleanor would actually ended up staying with him, but never forgave him. So for the rest of his life, she had this anger against him. FDR was a New York senator from 1910 to 1913. He would then go on to be the assistant secretary of the Navy from 1913 to 1919. He loved the Navy. He was ill after going to Europe for naval installations, but Roosevelt would end up running for vice president with President Woodrow Wilson, but lost. Actually, in 1921, he fell sick and was paralyzed from the waist down due to polio. At the time, polio was still, very, very contagious, and there's no polio vaccine at the time. He would not let it stop him, though. He would be determined to run in 1932 against Hoover. He would win and lead to almost 16 years as United States president. He would create the New Deal, which was controversial, but close to socialism to many people, according to many historians. World War II would break out in Europe, but it was not until Pearl Harbor on December 6, 1941, the United States actually get involved and be, on the side of the Allies with the French and the British. He would establish relationships with the UK, Russia, which would form which actually changed the tide of the war. With D-Day, June 6, 1944. He would run for election in 1944, and he would win. So this would be his 4th term. The war in Europe was near the end. As May was approaching, he decided to go to Warm Springs, Georgia, where he complained of a major headache and fell ill and fell into unconsciousness. He died of a hemorrhage at 3:35 on April 12, 1945, at the age of 63. Truman would take over as president. Actually, one of the dark spots of, Truman would become president, which would eventually lead to him, decisively ordering, the bombings, the atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. One of the dark spots of his presidency was Executive Order 9066, the internment camps of Japanese Americans. It would be a black eye in one of his history because, these were American citizens they were holding in, internment camps, that's what the Germans were doing at the time, with people who they consider the enemy. So that's kind of a black eye for him. Obviously, the New Deal got the United States out of the Great Depression with establishing jobs and war bonds, things like that. FDR was very influential but controversial, but he was beloved throughout history. Yeah, he was, like I mentioned, he did this thing where he did a fireside chat where he would address the American people. So it was for him to get close to the people he was with. The people, obviously the American people. There's some books I looked up. I would recommend you looking. There was Four Freedoms, 1941, Infamous Speech, 1941. You should look into that. That speech was amazing. The Five-Star Chats was a book. The Atlantic Charter. There's so many different things he had to offer. We still talk about him today. And it was actually the infamous speech was actually announced on December 8th, 1941, the day after Pearl Harbor. So it served as a purpose to show that the United States will not back down. So actually, initially, the Japanese tried to scare the United States into not going. So he decided to talk his truth and say that, they declared war on Germany, and in Germany, on Japan, and in Germany declared war on the United States. Famous quote, let me read it to you. Let's see here. The line is obvious, sometimes misquoted as a day to live in infamy, but it rather said that it wasn't that. So it really depends on what what person you listen to, what book. But it's definitely interesting, like, about his history. Obviously, 4 terms, it's unheard of. It hasn't happened since. I think the United States actually put the limit to 2 terms because of it. And he died in office, so that's kind of like another thing. And him, actually, there's some speculation that he actually had an affair at the time while he was president before his death. Even there's speculation that Eleanor had a affair during the time. So it was, I don't know. Obviously it depends on what you read. What I looked up, they both had affairs. He's a great president, but I think I heard some other things. I don't know if anyone knows, but his doctor would actually prescribe cocaine as a way to relieve pain. Obviously, he had polio, so he wasn't able to walk. And many of his photographs were him in the car or somewhere, but not showing pictures of him like using his crutches, because he had metal crutches at the time. So it was to protect the American people and protect his image. Obviously, disability, no disability, he was still able to go out and actually turn the tide of the war, like I mentioned. But yeah, FDR, depend who you look at. He's a great president. Obviously, he served 4 terms. Obviously, he made mistakes, with everything he did. But hey, he helped. He actually initiated the development of the atomic bomb, which is horrible. But it ended the war and caused, stopped the deaths of more people, because of invading Japan would cause more deaths for American troops. And he would actually help with the groundwork of the United Nations and other institutions that would help Europe get back on its feet. So it was very, he was a great president, obviously historical. You could look up his library museum. Obviously not right now because of what's going on in the world, but he's very influential, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Obviously, I'll be talking more about other United States presidents and non-United States presidents and leaders. But if you like this episode, just follow me on, if you don't follow me already, on Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a review. Anything would help me to get better at these, recordings and podcasts. Anything I'm missing, let me know. But yeah, this was FDR, and thank you guys so much. Yet again, this is Evaristo, and see you guys soon. And until next time, bye bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Everlasting Talk. For more content, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Everlasting Talk. Thank you.